Okay, the Housing and Urban Development Zoning Committee will be called to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Davis,
Present.
Alderman Cone, Alderman Coder,
Here.
Alderwoman Boyd,
Here.
Alderman Muhammad, Alderwoman Martin,
Present.
Alderman Orion,
Here.
Alderwoman Evans,
Present.
Chairman Boyd.
Present.
7 present, you have quorum.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion on the adoption of the minutes dated October 12th, 2021.
I move to approve the minutes to the October 12th, 2021 HUD's committee meeting.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Davis,
Aye.
Alderman Cone, Alderman Coder, Alderwoman Boyd,
Aye.
Aye.
Alderman Muhammad, Alderwoman Martin,
Aye.
Alderman Orion.
Aye.
Alderwoman Evans,
Aye.
Chairman Boyd.
Aye.
7 aye votes.
And by your vote, you adopted the minutes dated October 12th, 2021. Board bills for review today is Board Bill number 93 and 110. Board Bill 93 is a board bill that we heard a couple of weeks or so ago, and it got voted out of committee. However, we did have a speaker signed up and it got passed the committee. The speaker was inadvertently overlooked. The bill was put on the informal calendar, perfection informal calendar. However, I wanted to bring the bill back up for review today so that we can have public comment for the record for the board bill. So with that, let's go ahead and once again discuss the board bill. So Alderwoman Davis, you're up on Board Bill 93.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee and the public. I'd like to bring further discussion for Board Bill 93, anticipating that the public comment will be heard and evaluated today. We have a bill that is a zoning bill. It has necessary need because in this particular area, it had been basically industrial, and we currently have already passed some other zoning bills where we now have residential in the area, and now we're looking to have substantial retail continue to come to the area. And so I appreciate the zoning staff, and I would definitely ask for the input from the zoning department, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we have anybody from zoning? I didn't see anybody on the speakers list from zoning. We do have 3 speakers. Was there anybody from zoning on?
Mr. Chair, I see Mary Burton on the line.
Okay, you do?
Yes.
Okay, Mary Hart Burton, would you like to speak to Board Bill 93?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to refresh everybody's memory from our last time, this is a rezoning bill to rezone parcels from the J industrial and the K unrestricted district to the H area commercial district. That will help to facilitate a mixed use development that's planned for this area that will include 196 residential units, 65,000 square feet of ground floor retail, and 249 structured parking spaces, along with 141 retail parking spaces on grade. And I'm happy to answer any questions in regard to the zoning or rezoning. Thank you.
Okay, let's go around real quick and ask members of the committee if they have any questions. Is Alderman Cone with us? Okay, Alderman Coulter,
No questions, and I'll be abstaining on this as my firm's involved.
okay. Alderman Pam Boyd,
No questions.
Alderman Muhammad, Alderwoman Martin,
No questions, thank you.
Alderman Ryan,
No questions, thank you.
Alderwoman Evans,
How many businesses did it say that it would be affecting?
Currently, it's one major retailer. There will
Okay,
meet, yeah,
okay, no further questions.
okay. Mayor, I do have a quick question. So it's my understanding that J and K are the highest zoning, what do you call it? Zoning
District?
district, yeah, which means you can do almost anything, right? In those.
I don't know that I would call them the highest district. What I would call them is the least restrictive
Least
district,
restricted.
meaning that you can do the more noxious type of uses, industrial type uses. But
Right.
also in those two districts, it does not allow for residential. So anytime we have a mixed use project that involves residential and the parcels are zone J and K, we always have to look to rezone them to something that will allow for commercial and residential.
Okay, that makes sense. That clears up that mystery for me. Thank you. So now we will go to the public. We have Mr. Michael Hamburg, the owner / developer of One Pier Property Group, speaking in favor. Is Mr. Hamburg on?
I am. Good morning, everybody. Mr. Chairman.
Good morning.
Thank you all for your consideration today and your time today on this one. Yeah, I'm just here to answer any questions. We're very excited to be presenting this project today on this one and the next one we'll touch on. So I'm just here for any questions on the project.
Okay. Speaking against, Mr. Jerry Connolly. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me back up. Mr. Hamburg, I was supposed to swear you in. That's a new rule that keeps slipping me sometimes. So do you swear or affirm that the testimony you just previously gave us is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, thank you. And again, you're representing One Pier Property Group, correct?
Correct.
Okay. The first speaker speaking against is Mr. Jerry Connolly. Are you here?
Yes, I am. I'm just about to unmute start my video.
Okay. So, Mr. Connolly, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do swear so, yes.
Okay, so again, for the record, state your name, give me the 100 block that you live in, and proceed with your testimony.
My name's Jerry Connolly. I'm an 8th Ward resident. I live on the 3800 block of Botanical. I'd just like to register my objection to having to state my street out loud.
I'm sorry, honey. I could not. Oh,
I'm sorry. Please continue, Mr. Connolly.
Okay, I just like to state my objection. There's nothing in the rules for committee hearings that says a witness has to state their street name out loud. You know, you've got my street address. It's provided to the clerk. Everyone on the committee should be able to see that. So I just wanted to register that objection. So regarding Board Bill 93, the rezoning is located in the SLU redevelopment area, the Chapter 353 area. This was approved by the full board in December 2016. Of the 28 older people who were serving at the time, 11 remain on the board. 5 of the folks who voted in favor are still on the board. All 4 people who voted against it are still on the board. Basically, that decision has put us in a position where a private institution in the form of St. Louis University in partnership with SSM through the St. Louis Midtown Redevelopment Corporation, which they essentially control. Therefore, they control the allocation of incentives within that district, with the exception of tax increment financing. Peer Property Group in their previous developments have already received tax abatements, I believe, up to the length of 20 years. Those abatements impact the public schools to the greatest degree, with 60% of the property tax revenue going to the public schools. Because there's no blighting bill for the tax abatement that goes through the board currently, fairly obscure legislation such as rezoning is really the only opportunity the public have to provide input. On this project, there is a sales tax exemption. I think that's Board Bill 113 that's in this committee that hasn't had a hearing yet. This is actually kind of somewhat unusual for the sales tax exemption to go through.
Mr. Conley, you have 1 more minute.
Okay. So in conformity with the 353, I want to know, has the SODC staff provided to you as the committee members a review of this current Steelcote project by Peer Property Group? According to the 353 statute that was approved, LCRA are supposed to do a review of that. So I want to know whether you've seen that. And then the other thing I want to know is, will this project be retained by Peer Property Group or sold to a different entity? Board Bill 110 for the SID indicates that there's another company that will be taking ownership to this project. So I want you as a committee and the full board to understand who is going to benefit.
15 seconds.
Is it Michael Hamburg's group, or is it Fireside Financial located in Edwardsville, Illinois?
Okay, thank you for your testimony, Mr. Conley. So let me make sure that we're clear on what we're doing here. This is a zoning bill, and comments should be germane to the zoning bill. This bill has nothing to do with any incentives. And so we will not be answering any questions because you're here to just provide testimony, but you're welcome to do a sunshine request to SLDC and find out how, you know, their process went, who they notified, and be even more informed about what's going on. So thank you for your testimony. Next up is Mr. Don DeVivo. Mr. Don DeVivo on the line. Mr. Don DeVivo. Madam Clerk, do you see Don DeVivo?
Have you got me now?
Oh,
Yes.
we can hear you.
I don't know how to get my picture on here.
Okay, well, you need to get your picture on to give testimony.
I actually don't know how. It's here, wait, start video. Okay, great.
There we go. Okay, Mr. DeVivo, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes,
Okay, so again, for the record, state your name and the 100 block that you live on.
okay. Donald DeVivo, 4400 Swan, St. Louis, Missouri.
Okay, you have 3 minutes, Mr. DeVivo.
Yes. I'm located in the Grove. We've had zoning changes, and our zoning changes did not work out for us. I'm in Adams Grove. I've got 7 4-story buildings going up, almost 1,000 units in my little 3-block area. We've had a lot of damage from the construction. We're going to have 1,000 extra cars on the street. And it's led to the gentrification of our neighborhood. So zoning is really a tactic used in what I consider racial development. So that's really about what I wanted to say today about it, and just compare it over to the Grove, which is also a Brooks Goedeker project. So we're over here living with all this construction and being overpopulated, while our current residents are being code violated when the new construction goes on. So I'm very concerned about attempts to rezone properties. Thank you. That's all the testimony I have on 93.
Okay, thank you for your testimony, Mr. DeVivo. So for the record, Board Bill 93 have been heard for public testimony input. For anybody who have an issue with the fact that we did not bring it back, send it back to committee and re-vote all the way over again, is we didn't have to. The bill was put on the informal calendar. Any testimony that may change the hearts and minds of members of the Board of Aldermen, they now have access to that testimony. So when the bill comes up for perfection, aldermen have a right to express their concern based on the testimony both for and against. And so now the board bill again have been heard for public testimony. It will be back on track as long as the alderman from the 19th wishes it to be perfected and third read and finally passed. Okay, so now we're going to move on to Board Bill 110, sponsored by Alderwoman Davis. Alderwoman Davis, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, and members of the public. Board Bill 110 is very familiar to us in the process as we have been developing the city and providing additional opportunities through this tool, which is a SID, to support new development and or communities as needed. The process allows for a board to be formed and represent the SID and choose its mission for the funding of the SID as far as how the expenditures will take place. So what I'd like to do is ask that, Mr. Chairman, we have the developer before us, and if we have any questions from committee members, we'll be happy to answer them.
Okay, members of the committee, Alderman Cone, are you with us? Alderman Kotar. Alderman Coder. Okay. Alderwoman Pam Boyd.
No questions.
Okay. Alderman Muhammad. Alderwoman Martin.
No questions, thank you.
Alderman Narayan.
Thank you, Chairman Boyd. I do have just a couple of concerns. Do we have any idea who may be on the SID board?
Yes, this is. May I respond? Or is this an appropriate time for me to jump in?
I'm gonna defer to Alderwoman Marlene Davis.
I will, that is the attorney and representative of the project. He should speak, yes, thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Hamburg. Oh, we're on a different bill. Again, Mr. Hamburg, do you promise or affirm or swear that the testimony you're about to give on Board Bill 110 is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, go ahead and proceed.
Are you okay if I let my attorney, Rob Preston, who's on the line, field that one, or do you want me to answer that one? I can, I just would rather.
No, I can swear him in and he can testify.
Perfect.
Good morning, Mr. Preston.
Good morning, sir.
Do you promise to swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide for Board Bill 110 is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please proceed, and again, tell us what firm you're with.
I'm the law firm of Spencer Fain. My address at the office is 1 North Brentwood in Clayton, Missouri. This is actually a very topical issue, Alderman. We, in fact, have submitted a committee substitute board bill, which I wasn't sure if that was acknowledged or introduced for the purpose of ensuring that all of our board members met the statutory requirements under the SID Act. So as revised, we have Zach Wilson, who's a member of SLDC. The SID board is comprised of 5 members. Zach Wilson, who's a member of SLDC, Brooks Gattaker on the line, who's a representative from the Midtown Redevelopment Corporation. And then the developer has appointed three individuals, himself, Lauren Hamburg, and Michael Baker, who's involved in the project as well.
Matthew Baker.
Matthew Baker, pardon me.
So there's no residents that are going to be a member of this SID.
Residents of the building?
Well, the building hasn't been completed yet, but
yeah, that's why I was asking. Yeah,
residents of in the footprint of the SID.
Oh, and there are none at this time.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, and then the only other question that I have is, do we have a good idea of how much?
No, I have been here.
How much space?
SLPB, can you mute Mr. Don DeVivo and also give me privileges to mute people?
You already have those powers, but I will go ahead and do that.
Okay, I have to figure it out then.
Do we have any details on parking here? How much parking there is per resident? I understand that there's going to be a lot of parking there, and there's a transit heavy area. So I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, so we've got approximately 1.2 spaces per unit on the residential side. And then we're anticipating about 140 surface spaces to go towards retail, solely for retail use.
Got it. Well, thank you. I'm going to vote today to get this out of committee, but I still have some concerns with it. And I'm looking forward to a robust discussion on the floor. And with that, I yield. Thank you.
Alderman Ryan, if there's some more concerns that you have, I'd really appreciate it if we could bring it out in committee while we have representatives from the law firm as well as the developer, because what happens is when we get on the floor, there become technical questions that may need to be answered, and they can best be answered by the lawyer who put it together as well as the developer. So I want to give you time to ask additional questions.
Sure. I guess really I'll need to do more homework based on the answers that I've been given. Just on I always have concerns when there's not a resident who is a member of the SID in the footprint of the SID. I understand that there is no one there right now. That's always concerning to me, to have people with the power to essentially levy taxes that do not reside in that area and aren't necessarily receptive to what the residents are looking for, because they as aldermen, we're responsible to our voters. SIDs definitely don't have that same responsibility. You can't just vote a guy out. So that's a concern that I have. That's not just for this project. That's for, many projects overall. And I understand that that's not something that we can be, if there is no resident now, we can't put one in there. Yes, sir, Mr. Hamburg.
I was just going to comment, and I totally appreciate your comment of someone needing or desire for someone living in the SID to be representing it. And yeah, as you said, unfortunately, it's not built yet, so there's no one there. But what I can say is, my company, as well as my partner, which is Fireside, which was mentioned earlier on a prior board bill, and that's one of the individuals that Mr. Preston mentioned is on the board here. We've invested millions of dollars in these surrounding properties in this neighborhood and plan on, this $60 million project here that includes the SID that we're talking about today. And all I'm getting at there is we've got a very vested interest in this neighborhood and in keeping all of the residents that we currently have in our buildings and all of our future prospects and future residents interested in living here. And so because of that, we're always going to want to be aligned and delivering and doing everything that we can to continue to sustain, that demand for residential housing in this neighborhood. So yeah, I just wanted to point that out, and then also point out that that same group that again includes several members of that board that Mr. Preston mentioned, we're basically fronting a lot of capital here at closing and during construction of this project to be able to fund these public infrastructure improvements, whether that's reestablishing a long time vacant and kind of closed off street grid here, adding pedestrian access from Gratiot and the eventual brick line trail all the way up to Grand. There's a lot of community benefits and just public improvements that we're trying to establish here to really create a new access and entry point for this neighborhood. And I just wanted to point out, we're having to fund all of those costs up front. And yes, the SID will hopefully reimburse those over time. But there's a lot of capital from our perspective being invested here. So just wanted to point that out from kind of an alignment perspective.
And I do appreciate that. And I believe what you're saying. I think in the past, sometimes we've seen where the problem arises is when the developer then goes on to sell the property and the next in line holding the title doesn't necessarily share the same values as the developer did, but those incentives remain. And there's not a great way to control for that. It's your property. You can buy it, sell it, lease it, do what you please with it. But it's one of those things that at the end of the day, on occasion, we have residents that are just left holding the bag. And sometimes it's unavoidable. This may be one of those times. And I do believe everything that you've said. So yeah, I guess that's all I have. Thank you.
Well, let me jump in here as well and add something. Alderman, I appreciate your concerns, and the city as well as the state legislature have taken some steps in this direction to respond to your concerns as well as several others, many others. So the recent, in effect, as recently as like 45 days ago, was a overhaul of the Community Improvement District Act. And so we are subject to that, which requires every district to have on its board one member who resides in the municipality in which the district is located, who isn't financially interested in the project. And so we have both Zach Wilson, who's on SLDC staff. Not only is he a resident of the city, not interested, but also, of course, gives the city's constant optics on what's going on with the board, as well as Mr. Gettiger. And then in this, the Board Bill 113, which isn't on the agenda for today, however, is a sister bill to this. There is some negotiation that the developer has engaged in with the city to provide some additional benefit to the city. One is that there's a 7-year holding period for the developer here to ensure that because he's vested in this part of the city, wanted to make sure that he stayed involved, certainly until the property was stabilized and such. And there's a clawback right in the event he sells prior to that, where the city would receive, or there'd be a payment of excess funds realized by him in connection with any such sale, as well as there's a covenant in there that 10% of the housing units in the project will be, 5% workforce and 5% affordable housing in the structures above, in the residential units. So
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, what you just said? Sorry, just that last.
You bet. And we were gonna save this till the next hearing, but I think it's pertinent here, just this part and parcel. Maybe I'll take a step back. That Board Bill 113 pertains to a sales tax exemption on construction materials. And in connection with that, the developer will enter into a handful of agreements with the city, including one called a performance agreement. That requires the developer to, as I just mentioned, hold the project for 7 years, or potentially pay a penalty if the profits from the project exceed a rate of return that the city agreed to. And then also requires the developer to maintain in the project for the entire abatement period. Michael, you can probably, as I'm a little loose on these terms, but 5% workforce housing and a 5% affordable housing And those are defined as, I'm trying to remember, like 80 and
80.
60% of the median income respectively.
Correct.
Understood. Thank you for that. And you're on mute, Chairman Boyd.
Thank you. Is that all, Alderman Ryan?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, I see Alderwoman Martin has her hand up. Alderwoman Martin, you recognize?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a question. Are we having discussion right now on the committee substitute or
No.
the
board bill as a whole? I will put it, I want to go through, discuss the board bill as presented, and then move to put the substitute before us, and then talk about the changes in the substitute.
Okay, thank you.
And for what it's worth, the changes in the substitute.
Wait a minute, hold up. So,
Sorry.
Alderwoman Davis, would you like to put the committee substitute before the committee?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to move to adopt the committee substitute for Board Bill 110.
Why don't we move to put it before the committee
I'm sorry.
for discussion?
What? I am moving too fast. I'd like to put it before the committee for discussions.
I'll second that.
It's been moved in second. Anybody have an objection to previous roll? Okay, hearing none, Board Bill 110 committee substitute is before us. Alderwoman, go ahead and explain what the changes are in the committee substitute.
Well, the committee substitute, basically what we've been talking about, gave the additional information for the composition of the SID and identifying the members on the SID board and outlining the mission of it in more detail. One of the things that I do appreciate about this particular development is, aside from the community benefit agreement that is already in place for our the 353 development, which includes a list of about 15 things, our SLDC group led by Neil Richardson took the time and was very focused, and I think engaged our developer to a point where we have all these additional incentives that the developer is providing to this project. So I'm very appreciative of that. And I believe that the SID will support all those things that require a good, safe community. And I just would like to just leave it there and allow, again, if you have any other questions, we'll be here to answer them.
Okay. Does everyone have a copy of the committee substitute? Let me ask this way. Is there anyone who does not have access to committee substitute? Because there are some technical changes. There are changes with the members, which was mentioned earlier, but also there are changes in the, it's like the agreement, the petition itself. So before we take questions from the committee, I'm going to go ahead. I know Mr. Preston wants to kind of jump in. Some of this stuff just look like change of dates and so forth. Mr. Preston, you want to go ahead and kind of walk us through the committee substitute?
Happy to. And the changes here are de minimis, but I wanted to, just in the interest of transparency, and put them forward. The SID Act allows us to modify the petition up to the closing of the public hearing. And so we filed a copy of this earlier this week, yesterday, with the registrar's office, and you have received a copy. In the board bill, the only real change is that we've changed the names of two of the directors. The other two directors were Illinois residents, unbeknownst to me when we first put this together, and Missouri Constitution requires members of the board as this is a political subdivision of the state, to be Missouri residents. So we swapped them out for compliance there. The other issue is after we submitted our original board bill, the registrar's office in their diligence check of the petition found out that our legal description was missing a call, meaning that it was a couple feet off. It had some typos in it. So we are wanting to revise the legal description to ensure that it was a valid legal description. Didn't actually change the proposed parcels to be involved or the portions of the right of way that we intended to work on. It was just a typographical error that talked about like the north side of the street rather than the south side of the street. So we corrected that as well. Another just interesting legal piece that intervened here that caused some changes to the petition is that since the original petition was signed, each of the property owners within the district is required to sign the petition. However, Michael Hamburg's entity, Steelcote Gratiot LLC, acquired the remaining parcels within the district from St. Louis University, who was an original signatory to the CID petition. So in the amended petition, since he's the only property owner, he is the sole signatory. Otherwise, we haven't changed any of the projects, any of the budget, any of the funding mechanisms. It was just really those two items and some cleanup issues. Mr. Chairman, I believe you're muted again.
I'm sorry, thank you. I have to mute myself. I have construction going on and I want to minimize the noise. So that's why we have a lot of the strikeouts of petitioners to petitioner.
That's correct.
Right? Okay, but so what's going on Exhibit A, the first page where it says execution page, and there's a lot of strikeouts. What are we exactly doing there?
That was just removing St. Louis University as a party to the petition.
Gotcha. Okay. Just kind of going through here real quick. Okay, that's the property line issue. So
one thing I'll note as well in the legal description, the original legal description, we had it set up as a description of the lots and then a separate legal description of the rights of way.
mhm.
And the revised legal description is a consolidated legal description. Still describes all the same parcels. However, we just did it as a meets and bounds consolidated legal description. We felt that was cleaner.
Okay.
But did not change the map.
I just want to make sure that we're being very transparent on what has been changed. I'm certainly satisfied. So let's just go around and
Mr.
ask if any.
Chairman,
Yes.
I wanted to add one more thing. We
Sure.
did receive an email from the registrar's office indicating that everything is in compliance and has been filed accordingly.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hope everybody had a chance to glance at the substitute. I'm just going to go around and see if anybody have any questions. So Alderman Cone joined us. Okay. Alderman Kotor is abstaining anyway. Alderman Pam Boyd. You're on mute, Alderwoman.
This is driving me crazy. What I'm saying is, when I'm looking at it, the clean copy, it has the, these are the names of the people that will sit on the seat, and this is their terms. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and so is it an election time or a cycle where you would incorporate residents to be able to sign up for the SID or?
So the way, and I'm glad you asked, I was going to double back to provide some more color to Alderman Narayan's question. Right now, there's no residents in the district. At such time as there are residents in the district, votes of the district will fall to the registered voters within the district. So they would get a say on certain matters at that time under the SID statute. As far as the board of directors goes, the board of directors is per this petition, and it is customary under the SID Act, that the directors, the existing directors, upon the expiration of the term, will submit a slate of proposed directors to the city. And then the city will approve or disapprove of the selected slate. And then if they approve, then those folks will be appointed. If they disapprove, then the SID board will nominate additional folks for further consideration by the city.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, is Alderman Muhammad with us? Alderwoman Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't want to be a pain here, but I don't know. I have always had to have 24-hour committee sub or 24-hour notice for a committee sub anytime I've had a substitute before a committee. Or is that not the case?
They did. They met the
I believe it
24.
was set. It was sent out, seemed like several days ago.
Mhm.
I believe the clerk sent it
Okay,
out.
it was. Okay, it wasn't put on. It wasn't on. It wasn't available to the public, I don't believe.
Well, it doesn't have to be available to the public. It has to be available to the members of the committee within 24 hours.
Okay. So we don't have to have a committee substitute on the agenda. And so I guess my concern about that is, and I'm digressing here, is if someone does want to testify on it, they don't have that opportunity. We're not giving the public that opportunity to testify on a committee sub and those changes.
But we are, because we have people that signed up on this board bill.
Right, but they don't know what the committee sub is, so they don't really know what they're.
Okay, but they've heard, that's why I want to be clear on what the changes were so that they can hear it. But if that's a rule that you like to introduce, I would certainly support that it should be placed on in the public domain. But also remember, there are amendments that we can do to board bills. And so we don't want to get too complicated.
I understand. My committee subs have always had to be 24 hours on the agenda. So maybe I was told wrong.
Not on the agenda. They have to be.
Okay, well, when I'll go, I mean, mine were, I was told they had to be 24 hours. So maybe that's an internal issue we have. So, and then I do understand, and there's an article out there about this, about subsidizing the parking spaces in a transit area. You know, any other city I've lived in, you have to pay as a resident. You generally are paying for parking as a premium. I understand St. Louis is a little different, but we do want to incentivize, I think going forward as a city, incentivize, you know, less vehicles, less parking, less surface parking, incentivize people to use our public transit, and subsidizing more than one parking spot. I don't know if that is the best urban planning, in my opinion, going forward. I also, you know, in other cities too, when I lived in DC, you had to have DC plates to even park on the street. And, you know, you had so many residential street parking spaces. So I understand that we have a little more land to give in St. Louis. I understand that we are a little different in where we are in our development and population. But I do want to point that out, and I don't think that that's an invalid argument that's out there. And then the other question I have is, I don't know if anyone can answer this, but Target testified on the plumbing code legislation that was put forth a little while ago. I assume that does anyone know that's involved in this project know why Target Corporate is so interested in our plumbing code? I assume it affects costs on this project.
Chairman Boyd had to step away for a minute, so I'm going to take over the reins. I'm still abstaining on any votes on this, but Alderwoman Martin, does anyone from the development team have a response or any comment on her question there?
Frankly, on the Target side of it, from a plumbing perspective, I don't. Someone brought this up to me about 2 weeks ago that they had heard there was some opposition, but I have not heard that directly from Target, and it really has just come up once in conversation with me. So I don't know if that pertained to their other, existing city location, and maybe they were looking to do some updates and had some questions. But from a code perspective, nothing has come up with them on our extensive design and construction coordination calls. So unfortunately, I can't speak to that intelligently. I can follow up with them and see what that concern was, but I can't speak to it other than that. And on the parking side, yeah, I mean, I completely understand the comparison to other markets and other cities, but as you stated, we're just not in that situation here. And at all of my other city locations, which we've completed 4 and have another one under construction now, we've provided similar parking and we're at capacity. So I still think, in St. Louis, we're seeing 1, sometimes 2 cars per unit, even though we're located, in the middle of Midtown next to a Metrolink station and in the middle of a large university's campus. We still are seeing that demand for the parking.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I have in my ward along South Broadway, businesses have been denied because there's not enough parking. And I think the city is obsessed with convenient parking. And we kind of have to get beyond that mindset. I have people complaining that they can't park close enough to a park to walk to the park where they're going to walk. So I do want to just get people thinking about that. And I appreciate your conversation.
Yeah, and we see a huge benefit, obviously, just from a community perspective, and are hoping that this store, will reach north, south, east. I mean, all over St. Louis with access to the Metrolink. And so, I mean, I completely agree with you, and I'm hoping people will use this as a pedestrian location and one that they'll use public transit more than vehicular. But again, we're not seeing that 100% yet in St. Louis.
Thank you. And I would love for Target Corporate to explain their reasoning for getting involved.
Yeah, I can try to follow up with you directly.
Okay. Thank you very much. That's all I have.
Okay. Alderman Ryan.
Thank you, Chairman Boyd. Alderwoman Davis, you had mentioned in your testimony the community benefits to this. Is there a community benefit agreement to this, or were you just talking about the benefits overall to the community? I just want to make sure I'm understanding right.
Well, there are actually 2 levels here. The 353 plan has a community benefit agreement that was established. The residents, different advocacy groups, the university and others worked about a little over a year on putting it together. And I think that it has been moving with earnest. People are very, very satisfied with it. And they have, we've had semi-annual meetings with the community as a whole. And on occasions, I think one time we had to have 3 meetings that year because there were too many projects coming up and wanted to make sure that everybody was informed. But, just to give a little bit more clarity, the peer group is very involved with the Great Rivers and the Brick Line path there. They're very active, very supportive, and I think that as a whole, the 353 is definitely involved. There's no doubt about it, and very supportive. We also have, if you think about it, we have a area there where it's what I consider a bedroom community on the south side of Grand. When you look at Tiffany, Gate District, they don't have a lot of businesses in that area, nor a lot of conveniences, to put it mildly. So this is going to be a plus for them. And
that's great.
Yeah, in the metro area too. Yeah.
No, that's great to hear. I've always been supportive of these CBAs and development, so I'm really glad to hear there is one here. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Okay, Alderwoman Evans.
No questions.
Okay, we will now go and take testimony from the public. Let's see here. So in favor of is people on the development team. So we're gonna skip you guys right now. We'll just go to two people who have signed up against it, Mr. Jerry Connolly and Mr. Don DeVivo. So Mr. Connolly. Okay, so Mr. Connolly, let me swear you in again on this board bill. Do you affirm or swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, you have 3 minutes. Please proceed, sir.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity to testify on this. Firstly, the October 12th public hearing on this bill was not properly noticed. It wasn't on the Board of Alderman website agenda. It wasn't on the calendar email letter that you all receive, other officials and some public members receive. It was not on that. I believe it was published in the St. Louis Daily Record, which is not a paper of general circulation. Annual subscription costs hundreds of dollars. The only library branch that carries it is the Central Library. So I don't believe your October 12th hearing was held in compliance with
I'm sorry, Mr. Connolly, are we talking about Board Bill 110?
We are talking about Board Bill 110.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
And I'll email you some information on this later. You talk a lot about transparency here, yet Board Bill 113 for the sales tax exemption, you have to go to like page 127 to find out that there's possibly tax abatement on the project. So I don't think there's anything.
Okay, Mr. Connolly, I'm gonna stop you. I'll give you your time back, but we're talking about Board Bill 110. So can you please keep all your comments to specific to Board Bill 110?
Sure. 2 years ago, State Auditor Galloway released an audit of the city's special taxing districts. She made 2 recommendations for SIDS. One recommendation, establish procedures to perform and document an evaluation of SID petitions to ensure a potential district is in the best interest of the public before adopting an ordinance establishing the district. Also ensure the SID is structured in a way that provides independent oversight of SID activities. My question for you is, has that been done? Yes or no?
Okay, Mr. Connolly, we're not going to entertain questions. You can give comments, and maybe somebody on your behalf as a member of the committee can ask that question, okay?
Sure. And the second one is establish procedures to ensure SIDS are submitting annual budgets and annual performance reports to the city within the time frame stated by law. You know, essentially, this is a developer controlled SID. We have scores of developer controlled SIDs. None of them post their meetings on the city's meeting calendar. How is the public supposed to know how taxpayer funds are being allocated and spent? How is the public supposed to know or have any confidence that once these improvements are paid off, why will the SID continue if the SID is set up for these improvements? I'd like to know that. And in terms of, you know, essentially the developer controlling this, you know, SLU has, I don't know, SLU has Mr. Gedeker on this board. I don't know who Matthew Baker is and what his affiliation is. But should a private nonprofit university that doesn't pay property taxes on real estate have the authority to award the incentives to a private company and divert funds away from public schools and city services? You know, we started off with a rezoning. You know, Alderwoman Davis said there would be a major retailer. You know, where's the transparency in that? Now we know it's Target. Target are going to benefit from, you know, an incentivized parking project, and a 1% sales tax is going to, you know, it's a regressive tax that's going to disproportionately impact people of lower incomes. So I object to that. I'd like you to, again,
20 seconds.
I'd like you to get an independent analysis from LCRA and review all the materials on this project that was submitted to the LCRA board, if they were complying with the law. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Connolly. Next up is Mr. Don DeVivo. Mr. Vivo, do you promise or swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth on Board Bill 110?
Yes.
All right, please proceed, sir.
Thank you for the opportunity. Sorry, I missed my mute button last time. Okay, we have a SID in our neighborhood, so I know about SIDs. And I'd like to first talk about your members of your SID. I see no independent members on there. I see I see Brooks Gettiker with Midtown, who's understaffed. I see Zach Wilson, who's on staff at SLDC. They are both, I would call, project partners in this. So you, I think, lost the boat with residents. Also, it's very interesting that you put millions of dollars around the neighborhood, yet they are not in this SID. And the same thing happened in our neighborhood. And actually, Mr. Brooks Gettiker was probably a leader in this. So we had a developer that specifically gerrymandered our neighborhood to remove all property owners from being able to vote. And here I see you doing it again. One property owner helped get this SID together. That is not democracy, and that is not transparency. So I think your committee really needs to look at how you're giving these private tax abatements to private corporations. Also, the building owner is going to own the tax abatements, in which, you know, it sounds like that building is going to be sold in the future really soon. So you'll have a different owner in them. So my question is the SID also going to be turned over at that time to a different board of directors? Or is the SID going to be maintained and just the building's going to be sold? Sorry, one more thing I want to say is about what a SID is. Over here in the Grove, we created a private police district, and we specifically took police from the police department and hired them, which is why the city of St. Louis is short of police. When you add up the taxing districts that got private police security forces from our police department, you'll find that we are short of police because of the taxing district your committee is putting together. So I'd like to see a little more transparency and a little more responsibility. Thank you very much, Mr. Boyd.
Thank you, Mr. DeVivo, and that's Alderman Boyd. Thank you, or Chairman. So we have had public comment. I will go around one more time, and then we'll ask for the sponsor to close. Alderman Pam Boyd, any questions?
No questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Alderman Martin.
No questions, thank you.
Alderman Ryan.
No questions. Thank you.
Alderman Evans.
No questions, thank you.
Okay. Madam Clerk, have I fulfilled all my obligations with all our speakers? I would definitely want to make sure I didn't miss anybody.
Yes, sir, you did.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry, did Mr. Gettiker speak? Brooks? But he was for 110.
Yeah, he was with the development team. So
okay.
Unless he wants to speak. Is he on, Mr. Gettiker?
I'm just here to answer questions if anyone has any questions.
Okay, thank you. All righty. So Alderwoman Davis, you are recognized to close.
Thank you very much. Just to give some clarity on a SID, the public votes on a SID. There's a footprint that the SID has. It has boundaries. There's involvement from the comptroller's office and oversight of a SID. The members are mailed their voting rights to vote on a SID, and that list comes from the Board of Election Commissioners. The SID at any time, if there's X number of members who disagree with something, they can have a meeting called. That has happened in SIDs that I've been involved with, where there were issues that people didn't like. policies and procedures were changed, members were changed. So the public, the people who live in the footprint of the SID have a lot of say-so about it. That has never, ever been a problem. And in order for the SID to be renewed, it has to go through another process that is in place with the governance of the state as well as the city of St. Louis. So you can't just do what you want to do, how you feel like doing it on any given day. Process and procedure must be followed. Also, I'd like to clear up very quickly because I don't like the public. I don't like for the public to have a misunderstanding. The security that is hired by a SID are not police officers who come and leave their job permanently to work for a SID. They are hired to do off-duty work. So when they're off from their 8 hours with the police department, they may work 3, 4, 5 hours, depending on what the schedule is, for a SID. So I wanted to make sure that that was not something out there that is going to confuse the public. I also wanted to share that in this particular development, one of the things that we have to understand is that we're not taking anything away from the school district because there was nothing there. There were empty buildings, gravel roads, nothing there that was producing funding for taxes for the school district. This project is one of many projects that will continue to build the foundation and secure the future opportunities for the school district to grow. When you have projects like this that will bring additional funding to the general funds of the city, as well as the taxing districts, to make sure that their future growth is solidified versus just empty, vacant buildings and lots. So I appreciate this development. I appreciate that it's going to be led by Michael Hamburg, because you know what? He sat down and he took time to understand the desires of the city of St. Louis. SLDC and his negotiations with them, I think, brought great additional resources for this development. And so I do end with saying I ask for a favorable vote to move this out with a due pass recommendation. Thank you.
Are you making a motion?
I shall. I make the motion to move Board Bill 110 committee substitute with a due pass recommendation.
Okay, it's been moved to second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Davis,
Aye.
Alderman Cone, Alderman Coder,
Abstain.
Alderwoman Boyd,
Aye.
Alderman Muhammad, Alderwoman Martin,
Aye.
Alderman Orion,
Aye.
Alderwoman Evans, Chairman Boyd,
Aye.
Alderman Cone, Alderman Muhammad, Alderwoman Evans,
Okay.
5 aye votes and 1 abstain.
By your vote, you have passed Board Bill 110 out of committee with a due pass recommendation. Also like to announce,
I'm sorry, Chairman. That was 110 committee sub, correct?
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
thank you, 110 committee substitute, thank you. 110 committee substitute. I want to let Mr. Connolly and Mr. DeVivo know we do have your email on file and we will be emailing you a copy of Board Bill 110 committee substitute. Let's see here. Next, no resolutions. I'll go around and ask if any committee members have any announcements. Alderman Davis,
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Alderman Kotar,
No questions, no comments.
Alderman Pam Boyd,
I just have a comment. If they run out of land, I got something for them if they want to do development.
me too. I-70 and Goodfellow. Alderwoman Martin.
No questions or no announcements. Thank you.
Okay, Alderman Narayan.
Nothing over here. Thank you.
Okay, Alderwoman Evans.
No questions here. And ditto what Alderwoman Pam Boyd said.
Okay. I will excuse the alderman from the 21st and the 25th due to necessary absence. And that looks like we are done with our agenda today. Committee members, I want to thank everybody for their participation, and the HUD committee is now adjourned.